see me, they know that every day when I'm breathing, it's for us to go farther, you know? Every time I speak, I want the truth to come out. You know what I'm saying? Every time I speak, I want to shiver. You know, I don't want them to be like, they know what I'm going to say because it's polite. They know what I'm going to say. And even if I get in trouble, you know what I'm saying? Ain't that what we're supposed to do? I'm not saying I'm going to rule the world or I'm going to change the world, but I guarantee that I will spark the brain that will change the world. And that's our job, is to spark somebody else watching us. We might not be the ones, but let's not be selfish, and because we're not going to change the world, let's not talk about how we should change it. I don't know how to change it, but I know if I keep talking about how dirty it is out here, somebody's going to clean it up.
And now he's been promoted. His job, principal.
What's going on, everyone? This is Uche Njoku. Welcome to the Sneaker Principal Podcast. And what's going on here? Just want to make sure everything is working. Audio is fine. The board looks good. So again, welcome. This episode is actually pre-recorded. I am trying to do more content where I can better utilize time to record. I love going live, and as many times as I can, I will be going live. But however, I have to recognize my limitations with my schedule as a professional, as a husband, as a father, and all the above. So right now it is I think it's sometime Sunday afternoon, and I figured I have time right now, kids are sleeping, for me to record this episode of the podcast, which will now be streaming pre-recorded later on tonight. And the other thing too is I need to get more sleep. I need to get more sleep so I can be more functional during the day, and I have an incredible commute. But enough with my sob story about my personal life. Let's get into today's topic. So I was doing my usual, fishing and, navigating through YouTube and social media, and I came across a series of videos about attending boarding school, specifically attending boarding school in Nigeria. And some of you might be like, wait a minute, what does that have to do with you? Yes, I am Nigerian. If you didn't realize from the exotic name that I have, people have told me my name is exotic. In all reality, I'm looking at other people's name. I'm like, no, your name is exotic. Because where I come from, my name is normal. But my name Uche Njoku. I am of the Igbo tribe. I was born in Nigeria. I migrated here to America with my parents in the 80s. So I've been here long enough where, yes, it's hard for a lot of people to, when they first meet me and don't know my name, when I tell them Nigerian, it's hard for them to, sometimes to completely buy into that. They're like, wait a minute, but you don't sound like it. But, that's what happens when you've been in a foreign land for as long as I have been. But before coming to America, I did attend a boarding school in Nigeria. So the way it works in Nigeria is that you go to a typical elementary school, and when you get to the end of your elementary school years, usually primary 5, you take your standardized exam, and after you take that exam really determines where you go next, what you do next. And it's almost like taking the SATs for college, probably more like taking the specialized high school test you do in New York City. That test determines what happens to you next. And I took the test, and one thing I'm going to tell you about this test, it's like, for a lot of families, it's like life or death, literally. You could end up in one of the better schools, boarding schools, whatever the case may be, or you have to go to a local school, which typically was super underfunded and not as desirable. I took the test, and I scored high enough, and the schools that I applied to were 2 military schools, and I don't think I applied to anything other than the 2 military schools in Nigeria, which at that time were the top schools in the country. So that was the Nigerian, what was it called? NMS, Nigerian Military School, which was run by the Army. Then you had the Nigerian Air Force Military School, that was run by the Air Force. And I applied to both schools. My number one choice was the Nigerian Air Force Military School, and I got into that school, and that's where I ended up going. And mind you, this is my first time away from home. I would have been about 10 years old. So 10 years old, I remember being, the long drive from Kanu, where my family lived at the time, all the way to Jos in Plateau States. And that long drive with my luggage, with all my provisions and the things, the list of stuff that I had to get to come to school with. I remember being dropped off. I remember being like, oh my God, what's about to happen here? My mom was leaving me here by myself, and there was a bunch of other kids there. And mind you, now this school was secondary, so it would cover what here in America would be middle school through high school. So you're there for roughly about 5 or 6 years. When you go home, you're not there for 5 or 6 years straight. You don't see your families. You do go home for vacations and breaks and things of that nature. But however, your primary time existence is on campus, living in the dorms, and that's your life. And I have to say, I was there for about a year and a half, almost completion of my second year, but a year and a half. It was the most pivotal point in my life. I'll tell you why. We here in America talk about how we want our children to be independent, and we complain about our kids are not independent and they need to be more independent. And when we see these things, we're talking about usually high school and post-collegiate kids or young adults. In Nigeria, by 10 years old, by the end of that first year, but before I hit 11 years old in military school, I was fully independent. Like, what I mean by independent, if my parents were gone, I was by myself, I would survive. I would 100% survive. Because in military school, and at least in the boarding school, when I got there, no one referred to me as a child. I was not referred to as a 10-year-old. I was not referred to as an adolescent. I was just a cadet. And the same expectations they had of the, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17-year-olds were the same expectations they had of me as a 10-year-old. And I made my bed. I fetched water. This is a time when there was running water in the dormitories was a rare thing. So you'd have to fetch your water in a bucket, bring it into the room, and you'd have to use a heating coil to heat your water. And that bucket of water is what you had to wet yourself, lather yourself, and rinse yourself. And at 10 years old, I was ironing my uniform. What I mean by ironing, I'm talking about starched paper, cardboard paper, crisp uniforms. I'm talking about ironing. I was shining my boots. I'm talking about, you could see your reflection of my boots. And I was literally pouring candle wax onto my boot tips to get it as shiny as possible. And I was not only doing that for myself, I was doing it for all the upperclassmen in my room, because also in Nigeria, when you go to boarding school, there's a hierarchy. It's not just military schools, it's a hierarchy. Everyone who's older than you has authority over you. And as you move up in grades or in levels, guess what happens? You have authority over those who are below you. And there's a very, very, very strict belief in respect, and especially respecting your elders. An elder is literally anyone who's older than you. It's a very, very traditional old school space. And I just remember that being very important to my development, because I learned the power of sir and ma'am. I learned the power of just being able to accomplish tasks as ordered. I learned about hard work, because on this campus, it wasn't just you went to school. You went to school, and it was fun time. the whole entire campus was run and maintained by the cadets. Yes, you had servicemen, airmen, and officers who literally ran the operations of the campus and the school, and professors and teachers and such. But the maintenance of the campus, the cleanliness of the campus, the kitchens, all that was run by students, supervised by adults, but we ran that. When it was your dorm's turn to work the kitchens, you worked the kitchens. You served. You made sure everybody ate. You cleaned up after them. The grounds was maintained by us. We had sanitation days where we would go and jump into the gutters and clean the gutters out. Like the space was spot on immaculate, because that was the culture that's established in boarding schools in Nigeria, and even schools in general. Because I remember in elementary school in Nigeria that how we were the ones. I never saw an adult sweep. I never saw an adult clean a blackboard. At the end of the day, it was us students who did all that. So this sense of pride in maintaining your environment was something that was instilled in us very early on. And and forever and ever, I'll be thankful for those experiences and what it made me into as a young man, especially when I came to America and finished junior high and went into high school. I was very disciplined, and I was very much a no nonsense type of kid because of that experience. But the other side of the card on this is this, but especially when I was going through these videos, specifically these videos where people were reminiscing on their boarding school experiences, it wasn't all like, oh my God, it was such an amazing experience. But mind you, I say I'm grateful for my experiences, but it wasn't amazing. And if I used the word amazing earlier, I apologize, but I don't think I did, because I'm very careful on the words that I'm choosing to use here. Yes, I learned a lot, and I was formed in that space, kind of like I'm Bane Batman. You were, wait a minute, what do you say? You merely used the dark, but I was born in the dark. Yeah, it was kind of that kind of scenario. The dark side of boarding school was the fact that you had young kids running young kids, and let me tell you why that was the dark side. I remember the first time I got slapped across my face. It was day one at boarding school. It was a Form 3 cadet, which would have made him a 9th grader, who smacked the mess out of me because he asked me a question, and I, in my nervousness, I had a very severe stutter. I still stutter to this day, but back then it was crippling, and he smacked the mess out of me. Like, when I say that he smacked me so hard, I could taste blood. And I realized, oh snap, I was no longer in Kansas. The discipline of the cadets were primarily handled by other cadets, and it was brutal. Getting smacked, getting kicked, getting punched was not out of the ordinary. It definitely wasn't out of the ordinary. It was kind of frowned upon, but it still happened, a lot. But the other part of it too was the fact that the punishments, outside of being someone putting their hands on you, were also kind of like barbaric. Like, it was crazy. So things like you see the shoulders right here, these shoulders. Those of you who are listening on the podcast, I have pretty broad and thick shoulders. Let me tell you where I got the shoulders from. The number of times that I had to kneel down on concrete, kneel on concrete and hold a brick or a boulder, not a boulder, but a huge rock over my head, I can't even tell you. It got to the point where the pain was just my friend, doing things like frog jumps because you pissed off a senior cadet, and they would say, they would tell you to get into the position. You get into positions, grab your earlobes and get into a squatting position, start hopping. And they would tell you to hop with them. And they would go on these excursions and walk around campus, or through the dorms, up the stairs, down the stairs, to people's rooms, whatever their friends' rooms, and the whole entire time you're hopping. And other cadets cadets who are your age are like freaking out because, you know, your peers, your grade level peers are like, they're terrified when they see you in that position because they don't want to be in that position. So they're like trying to make eye contact and they're trying to avoid the space as much quickly as possible. The upperclassmen are thinking is hilarious, you know, and sometimes they join in the fun by, like, you know, poking at you and making fun or finding reasons to escalate your punishment, you know, to make it more severe. So, but the whole entire time you're hopping like a frog, and the amount of pain and the buildup of lactic acid in your quads, in your hamstrings, in your butt, in your back from doing this is crazy. Again, I have enormous calf muscles, so I can tell you this: I put miles of frog hops on these legs. To the point, side note, when I came to America, when I came to America, and I started high school, I remember a coach walking by me one time. The football coach walked by me and said to me, "Son, come here, boy. You're a big boy." And I was. But the funny thing, I was short. I was a little short, but he was like, "You're a big boy," because I was kind of like, I had this weird, funny build, these big shoulders and just thick legs. And he's like, "You ever play football?" And of course, being new to the country, I said yes. I thought he was talking about soccer. He was like, "You know, you need to come play for me." And I'm thinking, is he asking me to come play soccer? Because I was a goalie. You know, I could do. When I realized what he was talking about, them dudes with the helmets and the shoulder pads and the suit of armor and knocking the mess out of each other, you know, throwing that weird ball. I was like, I don't know if I can do that. But found out soon enough that I could. Just big shoulders were great. My big shoulders were great for you know, tackling people. And these big legs of mine were great for running the ball and chasing people down. Thank you, military school. But, however, I can make fun of it right now, but it was super traumatizing to be 10, 11 years old in this space where you're being, like, you never knew at any given point what could happen or what was it that you did wrong that could put you into punishment. I remember one time, and to this day, I don't know why or what happened. The senior cadets, and I'm saying upper, like the fourth and fifth, form 4 and 5, which would make these like 11th graders. Would that be right? Yeah, I mean, it's fun. The numbers are kind of weird because when I think about it, I was in Form 1 and that would have been like 6th grade. So 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So there was 6 forms. And 6 forms, so technically there wasn't a 12th grade. So it would have been like the 11th graders. So 10th, 11th graders. I don't know what happened. They were mad about something. I don't know, maybe somebody left maybe the bags were dirty or I don't know. Maybe just their girlfriend broke up with them. I have no idea what happened. All I know, it was the middle of the night and they woke up all of us. They woke up all of us. Form 1, 2, and 3. Because 4 and 5 would have been like more like the 10th and 11th graders or the upperclassmen. But the rest of us, because I remember specifically it was 9. It was Form 1, 2, and 3, and I was Form 1. And for those of you, I know I'm using these terms. Form is like it's grade. So they woke us up. I know it was the middle of the night. And we all woke up, and they had us out of our outside of our rooms, our dorm rooms. And the way these dorms were shaped, I think there were 4 dorms, and each of them they were called squadrons, and each, like, you know, Air Force, and each one had a different color. So you had purple, blue, yellow, I think green. Yeah, I think it was green. We were in the purple squadron, and which is weird because that's my favorite color. And I ended up in purple squadron. We were in purple squadron, and the way the dome was shaped, it almost looked like a what do you call those? I hate to use the prison terminology. Have you ever seen Oz and how it looks kind of like like, it's circular in shape. So all the rooms face to the center. So you can stand in the middle of the yard within the squadron, and you can see every room in circle. And it was like 3 floors. So they had every cadet out in front of their dorm. So it looked like you were watching a prison movie. We were all out there in our I want to say we were like in our skivvies, our white t-shirts and underwear, but we were in bed. And I don't know what happened. All I know is this fear. We didn't know what people are mad about. And they had us all get into the position, frog jumping. And they had us all in line, frog jump downstairs into the main squad. I mean, it was chaos. They came at us crazy, and we were, rolling in the dirt, and they had thrown water on us. And for those of you who are not aware, Plateau State is the highest elevation I want to say in Nigeria, state-wise. So it actually gets cold. Sometimes you get frosting. I mean, it's cold. And again, it's called Plateau State because it's literally a plateau. And the city of Jos, it got cold, put like that. And I just remember being just freezing, and they had us frog jump out into by the way, you had the water wells, the above ground water pumps, whatever the case were, and they had that water flowing, and we were rolling in that water. And again, what did we do? I have no idea. And thinking back now, it might have been them just saying, "Hey, let's have some fun," But I just remember the fear that instilled in us, the confusion that instilled in us, because we didn't know what warranted this, what caused this, so we couldn't do it again. And that was one of the examples, many examples where you just moved around like always, just off kilter. And I can tell you this: that first year of instruction in school, I can tell you this: I don't remember a single thing I learned that first year at the school, at the boarding school, because I was too tired, too scared, too riddled with anxiety to focus on anything. And I noticed that it wasn't just that it wasn't just me. It was every Form 1 for the most part. We were just confused. We were just trying our best to keep things together. But I did notice that the upperclassmen they did get their work done, and they were academically moving forward and doing really well. And it was like, so I guess maybe that was a strategy to really tear us down in that first year, and then build us up at some point in time. I don't know, but it was definitely stressful, super stressful. And I'm trying to think if there's about any particular stories that memories that I have. I do have memories of kids running away. As a matter of fact, in my dorm room, there were 2 Form 3s. No, it was 2. I'm getting these numbers mixed up. There was 3 Form 1s. I was a Form 1, which was first year cadets. There was 1 Form 2, 1 Form 3, and Form 3 and 2 Form 4. So 6 of us in that room. And I just remember, like, that was stress because again, because you guys share the certain room, they did not make it, and it was a huge squad bay. It wasn't like just like a bedroom. It was a huge room with bunk beds in there, and there was 2 bunk beds, and 2 bunk beds and 3 single beds. How many of those? Man, I'm over here trying to reminisce, trying to recall these memories. 3 Form 1s, 2. So there was 7. So yeah, it was not 6. There was 7 of us in that room. So yeah, 2 bunk beds and 3 single beds. And just because we lived in the same room didn't make us friends in any capacity. The 3 Form 1s, we were in constant fear of the upperclassmen in our rooms. Okay, mind you, my first slap was from the upperclassman in my room, who was literally he was a Form 3, and because I was studying, smacked the mess out of me. So again, this is the person I have to live with, And as Form 1s, you're responsible for everything in that room. You make everybody's beds, you get fetch the water, you make sure people's uniforms are pressed, and it was just like, hey, we were just like, servants in this space. And I remember and what was interesting is one of the three of us in the room who were Form 1s. One of them, his name was it doesn't matter now. His name was Tunde, and Tunde, apparently his father was very, very wealthy and very, very powerful, and a lot of wealthy men sent their kids to these schools because, at that point in time, Nigeria was a military dictatorship, and the military was seen as the easiest path towards power, and wealth. Join the military, and you spend your time in the military. After that, you make those connections, and and then from there you do whatever you choose to do with the rest of your life. So a lot of people send their kids to these schools because of the connections. You had the other kid in my room, Cyril. His father was the provost marshal of the Air Force. So he was pretty much in charge of the Air Force military police for the whole entire country. Again, you can imagine the very powerful post and position. And and then not only that, Cyril's older brother was the head cadet for the school. So so in this room, you had there was a little bit of a spotlight, and I was the odd one. I was the one. Who's your father again? My father's in America, so of course I was the American kid. At least that's what they said. Was at that point in time my father was living in America, and I just remember one day Tunde couldn't take it anymore, and he ran away. I will tell you that story in another episode of the podcast, because that story is one of those really, really weird stories. Because, I'm just going to hold off. I think the next episode I'll talk about that. But he did run away, and a lot of kids did run away, especially first year kids who just couldn't hack it, and it was crazy. It was a lot to put on on children, really. But at the same time, this traumatic space also did yield some positive traits that helped me through my adult life and even my teenage years. But it was still traumatic nonetheless. And I so often wonder, especially when I was watching those YouTube videos, people talking about the boarding school years, there's a lot of trauma talked about, but it wasn't framed as trauma because back then, even the whole notion of trauma was not something you talked about, or even understood. You just understood things to be the way they were, and that's what happened. Things were the way they were, and but nonetheless, I made it through that, and I asked myself, would I expose my children to that? And my answer is going to be no, because I was a different kind of kid. And I was already coming out of a traumatic experience or space with my families, with my father especially. So when I went to military school, it wasn't anything brand new, unfortunately. But however, not every child, is in that position to be able to really have the callous on them to be able to move through that space. And I was a bit callous. So after a while, I think I just kind of knew how to handle myself through those spaces, but that level of trauma is not acceptable. I went through it. I wouldn't put my kids through it, but it's one of those things that is unique to other parts of the world and countries. But I'll say one thing though. It's one of those. I never told my parents about what I went through in military school. I never had a conversation with my mother. She hears this podcast. She's going to be hearing this for the first time. But again, many people who in the YouTube videos who were sharing their stories said the same thing. They never told their parents about it. It was just kind of like, you just dealt with it. It made me think about how much that our kids go through, even in America, where it's not boarding school in Africa where you get your ass whooped, but kids who still go through traumatic experiences here in school, whether it's being bullied or whatever the case may be, or biased, or even a plethora of traumatic things that they should not be experiencing. How often our kids don't say anything. So I think it's very important that we sit down with our children and we talk to them. We talk to them and we make an effort to understand the world that they're in and do our homework. Because again, I know, not again, but I know that if my mother had known what I was going through in military school, she would have pulled me out immediately. I know for a fact she would have pulled me out. She would have been like, nope, that's not happening. But she didn't know, and a lot of us, our parents didn't know, The only way our parents would have known if they went to that same school and that same space. But, the traditional boarding school versus a boarding school, military school like that, two different beasts. And again, and I do not fault my mother because, again, I didn't say anything to her. And, I was proud to go to that school. I loved whenever I was home in my uniform, everybody would just lose their minds and be like, oh my God, you go to what school? So for me, I took the salt with the sweet, the bitter with the sweet. But again, it makes me very conscious of the fact that how important it is to us to talk to our children and make sure that we have an understanding of what they're going through and the spaces they're living in. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So hopefully this little story was entertaining and thought-provoking to someone out there. I really appreciate your time. And again, this is Uche and Joku, the Sneaker Principal Podcast, and we'll do this again soon. All right? Peace.
And now he's been promoted. His job, principal.